Welcome to the deep dive. Today's topic is a bit different. We're taking a look at my first grammar. Yeah, a student book meant for elementary school kids just starting out with English.
Sounds deceptively simple,
Yeah,
right?
you might think basic grammar, but trust me, there's a reason we're diving into this. We're going to uncover some hidden gems, things we might overlook as seasoned English speakers. It's all about those fundamental building blocks and how understanding them can actually give us a fresh perspective on the language as a whole.
It's like going back to the basics, the core principles. We often take these early concepts for granted. They become so ingrained. But revisiting them, we can rediscover the elegance and the logic behind them. It's fascinating, really.
Absolutely. And you'd be surprised by how much this little book packs in. We're talking be-verbs, all the forms, from positive to negative, and how to form those yes-no questions. Then we'll tackle possessives and demonstratives, those this, that, these, those words. Oh, and the ever tricky singular and plural nouns. Those can be a real headache sometimes.
Especially for those just starting out, right?
Exactly. Then we'll move on to those count and non-count nouns and how articles like a, and, the, and some fit into the picture. Prepositions, adjectives, comparatives, will cover them all. And of course, we can't forget those essential verb tenses, present simple and present continuous. We'll break down their forms, how to use them, and even touch upon their isar, those helpful verbs like can and may, and finally, those direct instructions we call imperatives.
It's quite a comprehensive journey, even for a beginner's grammar book.
It really is, and the book is structured so well for learning. It uses this spiral approach, meaning it revisits concepts multiple times, which is really effective for reinforcing understanding.
Definitely. And it's all about active learning, with lots of learner-centered activities. Each lesson follows a clear pattern, starting with a link and review, moving on to look and learn, where the new information is presented, then look and say, where it's used in context, and finally look and practice, where learners get to apply what they've learned. They've even got interactive games and comics sprinkled throughout.
Really helps to keep those young minds engaged.
And the progress tests, of course, make sure the knowledge is sticking.
All right, so let's start unpacking all of this. Where better to begin than with, well, the absolute cornerstone, be verbs.
Right, the verb to be is fundamental. It's how we express existence, a state of being, and even identity. The book starts with the simplest affirmative forms, I am, you are, he, she, it is, and then their plural counterparts. We are, you are, they are.
Okay, so right off the bat, there's a slight quirk. Are covers both singular and plural you, which can be a bit ambiguous sometimes, but also simplifies things, I guess.
It does, and it reflects how you is used in everyday speech. But the book doesn't waste any time. It jumps straight into those contractions we use all the time. I'm, your, he, she's, it's where, you're, there. It's interesting how early on they introduce these, showing how common they are in actual spoken English.
Yeah, makes sense. It's all about efficiency, right? Contractions make speaking smoother, faster, and then boom, the book throws in the negative forms, just add not after the be verb. So straightforward. I am not, you are not, he should is not, and so on.
And just like that, we get the negative contractions too. I'm not, which is the only contraction for that one. Then you aren't. He, she isn't. We aren't. You aren't. They aren't. And to really drive the point home, the book gives us these little examples like, he isn't a teacher. He's a student.
Right. It grounds the grammar in a real-world scenario, making it relatable. And they use these contrasting examples. It is not an umbrella. It is a cane, to highlight the defining role of the be verb. It helps us establish what something is, and equally important, what it is not.
That's a great point. And it's not just about memorizing these rules. The look and practice sections are packed with activities that get kids actively involved. Fill in the blanks with pictures, a panda, a nurse, lions, and word banks with is, are, and am. You can see how it reinforces the link between the verb and the subject it's describing. There are even activities where they look at a picture and decide if a sentence like, they aren't tennis players, is true or not. Very visual, very interactive. It caters to different learning styles, which is so crucial at that age.
Okay, so we've got the be verb basics down. Now, the book takes it a step further with forming yes-no questions. And this is where things get a little, well, flipped around.
It's all about that subject-verb inversion, right? Instead of you are, we get are you. And she is transforms into is she. It's a fundamental shift in word order that signals a question.
Exactly. And the book lays it out clearly. Am I? are you, is she height, are we, are you, are they. And it even includes those essential short answer forms, yes, you are, no, you aren't, yes, I am, no, I'm not, and so on.
Those short answers are such a key part of natural conversation.
For sure. And the look and say examples really bring it all together. You've got, is she a doctor? Yes, she is. Or to mix it up a bit, is he a teacher? No, he isn't. He is a student. Again, it's all about immediate real world application.
Right. And it subtly reinforces vocabulary too, like in the example, are they shoes? No, they aren't. They're socks. They're learning grammar and expanding their vocabulary at the same time.
Sneaky, sneaky. And of course, the practice continues with activities like forming questions from statements and choosing the right yes or no answer based on a picture. It's all about that active learning.
Absolutely. So we've got to be covered. Now, the book introduces those all-important question words, what, who, and whose. This is where things get a little more specific, a little more investigative.
Right. It's about digging for information, getting to the details, and each word has a specific target. What is all about identity, who is for people, and whose is all about establishing ownership.
The book keeps the examples super clear. In Look and Learn, you've got, what is it? It's a code. Simple, direct, informative, and then who are they? They are Amy's parents.
Which cleverly also introduces the concept of plural subjects in a question.
Very clever indeed. And then in Look and Say, they use these short, natural-sounding dialogues. What is it? It is a diary. Whose diary is it? It is Mary's diary. It shows how these questions flow in a real conversation.
It's like a little mystery unfolding. And they even include those moments where there's a correction or a need for clarification. Is he John's brother? No, he isn't. Who is he? He is John's friend. So it shows how these questions work even when we're wrong. There's a similar example with Amy's mom and dad.
Right. It reinforces the idea that these questions are tools for figuring things out, for clarifying. And in Look and Practice, things get really hands-on. There's a family photo, and the questions are all about who different people are. It also has you creating questions with what, who, and whose when you're given an answer.
So you have to work backwards, figure out the right question to get that specific piece of information. Very clever. Now, on to possessives, so those handy little words, this, that, these, and those.
Right. Possessives all about showing ownership. The book focuses mainly on possessive adjectives my, your, his, her, its, our, and their. Important to remember that these always go before the noun they're modifying.
My book, her pens, their toys, that sort of thing. And while the book focuses on the adjectives, it's worth noting there are also possessive pronouns like mine, yours, and hers. They work a bit differently in a sentence, standing alone instead of modifying a noun directly.
With an extra tidbit for you there.
Now, those demonstratives, this, that, these, those, they're like verbal pointing. They specify exactly which noun we're talking about, and they tell us two things. Quantity singular or plural, and proximity near or far.
This and these for things close by, that and those for things further away.
The book pairs them up nicely in Look and Learn. This is Amy's books, cleverly showing it could be one book or multiple books. Then that is his toy car for something singular and further away. These are her pens for multiple items close by, and those are their cookies for multiple items at a distance. The pictures in the book would really help kids visualize these distinctions.
Absolutely. And then in Look and Say, we could get those natural dialogues again. Is that her dog? No, it isn't. It's Tom's dog. So it combines that and the possessive Toms. There's another example with this and the cats, and then one with those that involves a correction.
So again, reinforcing that real-world usage where mistakes happen, things get clarified, and the Look and Practice gets kids actively using these forms. They fill in the right possessive adjective based on a picture.
So if you see a boy with a ball, it's his ball, for example.
Right. And then there are exercises where they have to write questions using the demonstrative, so they have to think about distance and number to ask the right question. Okay, now on to a topic that can be surprisingly tricky, even for native speakers. Singular and plural nouns.
Yeah, the rules can get a bit, well, unruly. But the book breaks them down step by step. The most basic rule, of course, is adding S to the end of a singular noun. So book becomes books, pen becomes pens. Simple as that.
But of course there are exceptions because, well, English wouldn't be English without them. The book does a good job of highlighting the key ones. Nouns ending in she, x, and es, you usually add es to make them plural, so you get buses, dishes, watches, boxes, and so on.
And then there's the Aggies rule. When a noun ends in a consonant followed by y, you change the Aggies so baby becomes babies and city becomes cities.
Those are the ones that always trip me up. And of course, we can't forget those totally irregular plurals, the ones you just have to memorize because they follow no pattern whatsoever, like man becoming men, foot becoming feet, child becoming children, mouse becoming mice.
Absolutely. And then there are the nouns that end in F or SAAS. They often, though not always, change to EVs in the plural form, like leaf to leaves and knife to knives. It's a lot to keep track of, especially for young learners.
It really is. But the book uses some clever techniques to make it stick. The look and say section contrasts a single item with a group and the corresponding number. I see an apple, then right next to it, I see 4 apples. Visual and numerical reinforcement all in one. They do similar examples with watches, babies, books, leaves, even children.
Very effective. And the look and practice activities really make the learners work with these rules. They might have to circle the pictures that match a plural ending or categorize nouns as singular or plural. This kind of active sorting and identification helps solidify the different patterns.
Okay, moving on, we come to those count and non-count nouns. A key distinction that impacts how we use articles and whether a noun can even have a plural form.
Right. Count nouns are those you can count individually. They have both singular and plural forms. The book has examples like book books, bus buses, leaf leaves, cookie cookies, banana bananas, and pen pens. You can easily say 1 book, 2 books, 3 cookies, and so on.
But then we have those trickier non-count nouns, the ones you can't typically count as separate units. Think substances, materials, abstract concepts. They usually don't have a standard plural form.
Exactly. The book lists water, cheese, juice, ice cream, milk, tea, money, homework, and bread. You wouldn't say 1 water or 2 homeworks. And another important point is that you can't usually use a or an directly with non-count nouns. You can say some water or a glass of water, but not just a water.
Right, that's a common mistake. And the book uses contrasting examples in look and say to clarify this difference. Is it water? No, it isn't. It is juice. Both are non-count but distinct substances. Then, is this homework? Yes, it is. Another non-count noun, and then a contrasting example. Are they flowers? No, they aren't. They are leaves.
Very clear. And the look and practice section has an interactive game where learners categorize nouns as singular count, plural count, or non-count. Hands-on learning really solidifies this sometimes tricky concept.
Okay, now that we have a grasp on count and non-count, let's dive into those little but mighty words, articles. A, and some.
Right. A and an are indefinite articles used only with singular count nouns. And the choice between them depends on the sound that follows, not just the letter.
Sound.
Exactly. A before a consonant sound, a book, a table, and before a vowel sound, an apple, an orange.
That's an important distinction. So a word like hour, it starts with a consonant, but it has a vowel sound, so it's an hour.
Exactly. Some is a bit more versatile, though. We use it for unspecified quantities of both plural count nouns, like some cookies, some oranges, and non-count nouns, like some water, some ice cream. It implies there's more than one or an amount of something without being specific.
Right. It bridges the gap when we're not giving a precise number or measure. I'm sure the look and learn section uses visual aids to show this. And in look and say, we get a nice practical example. I have a ham sandwich. I have some milk. I have a banana. All 3 articles in one sentence.
Perfect illustration. And of course, the look and practice reinforces this with activities where learners circle the correct article or choose the right one to complete a sentence.
Building on those indefinite articles, the book introduces the definite article, the.
The big kahuna of articles.
So we've got a, and for general singular count nouns, some for those unspecified quantities of plurals and non-count nouns. What sets the apart? When do we use it instead of the others?
The is for specific things that have already been mentioned or are uniquely identifiable in the context. The book gives this example. Amy has a pen and a pencil. The pen is red. The pencil is blue. Once we've introduced a pen and a pencil, the pen and the pencil refer back to those specific items.
Ah, so it creates a shared understanding, a specific reference point.
Exactly. The wren is also used for things considered unique in our world, like the moon, the sky, the sun. There's only one of each. And we use it when the context makes it absolutely clear what we're talking about, even if it hasn't been explicitly named before. For instance, the bird is in the bird cage. It implies there's a particular bird and a particular bird cage that both the speaker and listener know about.
And the book highlights that transition nicely in look and say, I see a bird. The bird is in the bird cage. Going from the indefinite of bird to the definite the bird once it's introduced. There's a similar example with a computer, too.
Great examples. And the look and practice activities help solidify this with things like coloring pictures based on sentences with articles and filling in the blanks with the correct article, a, an, or the.
Okay, time to shift gears a bit. Now we're on to prepositions of place.
All about describing locations, showing where things are in relation to other things. The book introduces the most common ones: in, on, under, in front of, and behind. And the question we use is, of course, where.
Straightforward and to the point. Look and learn gives us this example. Where is the ball? It is in the box, demonstrating that relationship between in and being contained within something.
And then look and say really brings it to life with pictures. We see a gorilla on a slide, a boy and a girl in a sandbox, a bear behind a tree, rabbits under a slide, and pandas in front of some swings. That visual context is so important, especially for young learners, to grasp those spatial relationships.
And the look and practice gets them actively involved. They draw objects in specific locations based on instructions and then answer where questions based on pictures.
So they're creating and interpreting, which helps solidify those mental maps. Now let's move on to adding some color and detail to our nouns with adjectives.
Ah, adjectives, the descriptive words that make language come alive. They tell us all about the qualities and characteristics of nouns.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes the typical placement of adjectives in English, usually right before the noun they're describing. So we get a big tree, a small house, and so on.
Right, but it also points out that be-verbs can act as a link between the noun and the adjective. So we can also say, the tree is big, the house is small. The adjective comes after the be-verb.
Two ways to structure those descriptive sentences. And look and say provides a nice range of common adjectives: happy, sad, slow, fast, big, small, long, short, old, young, hot, cold, new,
Yeah.
and uses them in different sentences.
The look and practice then gets learners matching adjectives to pictures and rewriting sentences so the adjective comes after the noun, with the be-verb linking them together. Okay, now for a concept that lets us compare things. Comparatives.
This is where we can say one thing has more of a certain quality than another. Bigger, faster, happier, you name it.
The book explains that for shorter adjectives, you usually add "er" to the end. Fast becomes faster, tall becomes taller. For longer adjectives, you generally put more in front. Interesting becomes more interesting.
And a key element of these sentences is often the word than, which sets up the comparison. Faster than, taller than, more interesting than, and so on.
Right, then makes that direct link between the two things being compared. And look and say does a great job of showing this visually. We see the giraffe is taller than the tree. Very clear. There's also the lizard's tail is longer than its body, comparing two parts of the same creature. And then the walk is bigger than the car. They even include examples with more and then, like the bike is more expensive than my computer. And comparisons using other adjectives like older, slower, shorter, hotter, easier.
A really good range of examples. And the look and practice has learners choosing the correct comparative adjective to complete sentences based on pictures.
So they're really looking for those visual cues that indicate more or less of something. Now we're stepping into the world of verb tenses, starting with the present simple. This is a workhorse tense in English, used all the time.
Absolutely essential. The present simple is our go-to for talking about habits, routines, and those general truths or facts that hold true.
The book lays out the rules nicely. Base form of the verb for I, you, we, and they. So I walk, you eat, we play, they learn. But for he, she, and it, we typically add that S or E ending. So it's he walks, she watches, it sleeps.
And just like with plural nouns, there are those specific rules for adding E. Verbs ending in E capital X, X, and SS get that extra E, S in the third person singular. And verbs ending in a consonant plus YS usually change the meat to A's, just like fly becomes flies.
It's nice how those rules mirror each other, makes it a bit easier to remember. The look and say section gives us those practical examples of present simple in action, describing routines. They wake up at 7:00, he brushes his teeth, she washes her face, actions that happen regularly. And the look and practice has learners matching verbs to pictures and changing the verb form based on the subject.
Right, making those connections between subject and verb form. Now, the book also makes a special point of addressing those irregular third-person singular forms of have, do, and go.
Ah, yes, those tricky ones. Have becomes has, do becomes does, and go becomes goes. Easy to forget, but so important to get right because they're used all the time.
And look and say gives us a great little story about Ken's daily routine, specifically highlighting these irregular forms. He gets up at 7:00. He has breakfast. He studies English at school. He does his homework. He goes to school. He goes to bed at 11 there. It shows how these forms work naturally in context.
Perfect example. And then in look and practice, it's all about choosing the right form of these irregular verbs to complete sentences. Okay, time to tackle negatives in the present simple. How do we say that something doesn't happen regularly?
We bring in our trusty helping verb do, paired with not. For I, you, we, and they, it's don't, followed by the base form of the verb. They don't like tomatoes, I don't drive a car, that sort of thing. For he, she, and it, it's doesn't, again, followed by the base form of the verb. She doesn't have a dog. Important to note that after doesn't, the verb goes back to its original form. We don't say doesn't, has.
Another common mistake. Doesn't does all the heavy lifting, so the main verb stays basic. And the look and say section gives us more real-life examples of these negative sentences. Then, in look and practice, it's all about completing sentences with either don't or doesn't and the correct base form of the verb.
Practice makes perfect. And finally, in our exploration of the present simple, we come to yes-no questions.
Okay, so just like we saw with those be-verbs, we're going to use a helping verb here too. For present simple, it's do for I, you, we, and they placed right at the start of the question. So we get, do you swim? Do they play soccer? And for he, she, and it's does at the beginning. Does she study English? That sort of thing.
Right. And the book, of course, provides those standard short answers. Yes, you do. No, you don't. Yes, she does. No, she doesn't, and so on. The look and say section shows these in dialogues, making them feel more natural. And in look and practice, it's all about forming questions based on charts and writing those short answers correctly.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground with the present simple. Now let's shift gears to the present continuous tense. This is the tense for actions happening right now as we speak.
The in-the-moment tense. And for affirmative sentences, we use the appropriate form of to be, am for I, is for he, she, and are for you, they, followed by the main verb with that ing ending. So we get I am speaking, he is standing, they are running, and so on.
And of course, there are those pesky little spelling rules to keep in mind when adding ing. Doubling the final consonant sit becomes sitting, run becomes running, and dropping the silent e dance becomes dancing, write becomes writing.
Right, those little details that can trip people up. The look and say section often uses a picture to show multiple actions happening simultaneously, all in the present continuous. You might see the baby is sleeping, mom is drinking coffee, dad is writing a letter. It's a snapshot of a moment in time. And in look and practice, learners might identify inging verbs in a picture or fill in the blanks with the correct present continuous form.
Okay, now for the negatives in present continuous. How do we express that something is not happening right now?
Simple. We put not after the form of to be. So, I am not reading, she is not watching TV, often contracted to she is watching TV and they are playing, or they aren't playing. Look and say, often contrast what someone is doing with what they are not doing. And the look and practice might have learners comparing two pictures and writing negative sentences about what's not happening to one of them.
And for yes-no questions in present continuous, we do that familiar flip-flop with the subject and to be. So I am jumping becomes am I jumping? You are watching becomes are you watching? She's talking becomes is she talking? The book provides those short answers too. And look and say gives us examples like is he talking on the phone? No, he isn't. He's writing a letter. And are they watching TV? Yes, they are. Then, in look and practice, learners look at a picture and circle the right yes or no answer to a question about what's happening in the image.
Right, keeping it visual and engaging. And finally, for present continuous, the book shows how to use what and who to ask about those actions in progress.
So it's like a combination of those question words with the present continuous tense. We ask things like, what are you doing and who is singing?
The look and learn gives the basic structures, and then look and say uses pictures to prompt questions. You might see something like, what is she doing? She's playing the piano. Or who's jumping? The rabbit is jumping. And in look and practice, learners might write those who and what questions based on given answers.
Really understanding how those question words work with ongoing actions. All right, we're in the home stretch now. Next up, the construction there plus be plus noun. A super useful way to say something exists or is present.
It's all about stating existence. There is, and there are our go-to phrases for this. There is for singular nouns and non-count nouns. There is a sandwich. There is some milk. And there are, for plural count nouns, there are 2 sandwiches. There are some cookies.
And to negate it, we just add not to the be verb. There isn't a sandwich. There aren't any sandwiches. Simple as that.
Exactly. And for questions, we just switch there And the be-verb, is there a sandwich? Are there any sandwiches? The book also highlights a point about those quantifiers some and any. We often use some in those positive there is are sentences. There is some milk. But any in questions and negative sentences with non-count nouns and plural count nouns. Is there any milk? There isn't any milk. Are there any cookies? There aren't any cookies.
Subtle but important distinctions. The look and say section likely has some visuals to illustrate this, and in look and practice, it's all about choosing the right form of to be Isers interrent and the right quantifier some or any to complete sentences based on pictures. We're almost there. Now for those helpful verbs, can and may. They add extra layers of meaning to the main verb.
They do indeed. Can primarily expresses ability, what someone or something is capable of doing. I can swim, horses can run, that kind of thing.
And may, in this context, is mainly used for asking and giving permission. It's considered more formal than can. You might say, may I come in? And the response could be, yes, you may, or no, you may not. The book shows both affirmative and negative forms, can, can't, may not.
Right, covering all the bases. And look and say gives us dialogue showing how these are used in conversation. And in look and practice, it might be matching abilities to pictures or filling in the blanks in requests with can or may.
Okay, our final stop on this grammar train, imperatives, those direct commands or instructions.
The just do it of grammar.
And they're usually super straightforward. Base form of the verb for positive commands, stand up, open the window, be quiet. And for negatives, just add don't in front, don't stand up, don't open the window, don't talk.
Simple and effective. Look and learn and look and say often illustrate common imperatives, sometimes in specific settings like a library. And look and practice has learners choosing the right imperative to complete sentences based on a picture or a little dialogue prompt.
Wow. We covered a lot of ground today, going all the way back to those elementary grammar basics.
It's amazing how much depth there is, even in these seemingly simple rules.
And what's fascinating is how these rules, which are taught to young learners, form the very foundation of our understanding of English. They may seem basic, but they're the building blocks for everything else.